Okay, we're live. We're live. All right, cool. All right. So welcome to another edition of the Femme Obscura Feminine, right? Everything that we talk about here is all about the dark aspects of the feminine energy, that primordial energy, that source, the cosmic, as we call it, the cosmic womb, right? Um, so what I discuss here is rooted in that. So today's topic is postpartum depression, the dark gift, right? But before I get into it, let's just backtrack real quick. My work with women, like I said before, is rooted in the dark feminine, all things dark feminine, all things primordial dark feminine, right? And so one of the things that I do is I have one-on-one coaching with women. It's transformational coaching, right? Now, the women who I work with, the women who come to me are women who, you've done all the work. You've made the changes. You've done the big things, right? But now you're at the point where you're like, okay, I really want to create the life that I truly desire, right? I'm no longer in this relationship or this marriage or this situationship, right? And I now want to create the life that I desire, but I still harbor some limiting beliefs. And our limiting beliefs are rooted in our fears, right? What I think it is actually the fear of actually being successful and really being able to create the life that you want. I can say for me, I can feel when there's a shift about to take place. When I've done all the work, I've put the energy in, and I can feel it in my body that things are about to change. And it can be sort of unsettling. It's this feeling, and it can be unsettling because you're like, wait a second, I'm actually getting ready to do this. Like the shift is taking place. You can feel it. And so I work with women, they come and they have that. It's like they say that fire in your belly, right? And they want to make that change, but there's still something that keeps them stuck. And so what we want to do is we want to get into that. What I do is I help you to take that fear and transmute it, right? So that is the one-on-one coaching that I do with women. I also have it's called the war room, right? Now, in the war room, we're getting into strategies, strategic communication, power moves, power dynamics, how to recognize when these power dynamics are actually being utilized against you, right? Not just talking about men. When we get into these types of conversations and these kind of spaces, it's always about, dealing with men, decenter men, or how to get a man, or all of these things, right? And what I do is I'm bringing everything back to source, with which is you. So in the war room, we're getting into different things. We're getting into the war strategies for daily life, how to handle discourse, healthy discourse, what to look for. So what I do is I get a lot into Machiavellianism, because that is the when we start getting into people like Robert Greene and the 48 Laws of Power and all of these things, 33 Strategies of War. He's building off of Machiavellianism. He's building off of that book, The Prince, right? So we're going to get into that. We get into that in the war room. So, and then for women who are still sort of like, I'm not sure. I know that I want to make these changes, but I'm still not sure exactly, what my move should be. I have a 30-minute free consult. And basically in there where we just figure out, where you are on your journey. Okay. So that was it for that part. Now let's get into the topic. Okay. So I was really pondering on postpartum depression, right? And I don't view depression the same way that most people view it. I see it as a gift. I call postpartum depression a gift. And excuse the background noise. I have people in my house, children. So so basically I see it as a gift. It's a gift and it's an opportunity. So for me, going through that postpartum depression, it was really interesting. I actually did a writing on it today. It's called The Dark Womb. And I get into what my journey was like. And, first off, when you have a baby, especially for the first time, women who are, when you have your first child, that is a symbolic death of the maiden. Because now we're dealing with archetypes. And, I'm very big on dealing with archetypes. And so that's the death of the maiden. So you're giving birth to this new life, but it's also a symbolic death of the maiden, of you, that part of you that died in order to become the mother. So when we're dealing with feminine energy in its nature is very dark. And so when we're getting into postpartum depression, that can take you into a dark place. I think the reason, and I mentioned this before, my theory on this is that women have been so completely taken out of their sovereign capacity that they've been placed in the restrictive rules of the nuclear family, right? So it's no longer communal. Having a baby is a feminine communal event, right? Back in those ancient times, you had, when a woman was going to have a baby, she had her mother and her aunties and her sisters and all the women around her to help her bring this new soul onto earth. Giving birth is sacred and it's powerful. This is why I also say that just because you have a womb doesn't mean you embody motherhood. Let's get that straight as well. Giving birth is sacred and it's powerful, but you, as a woman, do you embody that? Do you embody being a mother? Motherhood is a calling and it's sacred. Our bodies, our wombs have been commodified. And everything is about how many children can you birth so we can have more worker bees. But I think it's even more insidious than that. I think it's about bringing children here to harvest their energy. So there's a lot going on with that, but I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. Let me stick with the postpartum depression. So when I was going through postpartum depression, first of all, I had no idea that that's what it was at first. I didn't even think about it. I had already heard of postpartum depression, but when I was in it, I didn't know that that's what I was going through. I knew that, okay, I just had a baby. There's a lot going on here. But postpartum depression it didn't even dawn on me at first. I remember leaving the hospital with my baby. Like the family came and everybody was so happy and all of these things, right? But I remember being in the car. I was on my way home. I was sitting in the back seat with my daughter. My then husband was driving, of course. And I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? What what is my life about to be like? And there was like this fear that crept in. It was like this fear of the unknown. And it hovered over me like a fog. And I just remember being in like this lonely place. It was weird. When I got home, it was just the three of us. And a part of me wanted people to come, wanted to have visitors, but then there was another part of me that didn't. I wanted to bond with my baby, but then I didn't know what to do with my baby. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was trying to breastfeed and I was having a very, very difficult time with that. She wouldn't latch on. I was going through a lot. And, but again, like I said, I'm not thinking postpartum depression. I'm just thinking, okay, I just had a baby. What do I do? What do I do with the baby? What do I do with my life? I don't know what to do. I'm a new mom. I'm confused. I don't know. I have all this fear. All these things are going on. That's an aspect of postpartum depression. Now, your husband or partner or whatever, he doesn't know what you're going through. He doesn't understand that. He can grasp it from a, okay, this is what postpartum is. Okay, he can look at it like that, but he doesn't know what you're going through. Obviously, he can't know, right? So then, there was this shift that took place because he moved his cousin into our house and her son, her little son, he was like 4. And I wasn't fully on board with that. Yay! I got me a viewer, Casey Key. Hey, girl. So, he moved her in, her and her son, and I wasn't in full agreement with that. But I was, as we're all taught as women, oh, you just go along with it. He's the provider, so you're just supposed to, you go along with things, and he's providing a roof over your head, and because basically when we look at it, they're really only providing those parts of those hierarchy of needs, right? So, but we're conditioned into just not saying anything. You just go along. Okay, so here I am with this new baby, not realizing that I'm depressed, still having a hard time getting her to latch on. And then he moves this other woman and her son into the house. So this woman ends up becoming a liability more than anything. There was no help. And I can probably count on my hands how many times she actually did something for that whole year, how that whole 13 months that she stayed with us. I think she probably cleaned the kitchen maybe twice. But anyway, here I am going through all of this, and I have no idea that this is what this is. I knew I was depressed. I knew it was something going on. And I was talking to my mom. No, my sister. I was talking to my sister, and she said, "Do you think that maybe you're suffering from postpartum depression?" And I was like, wow, that's exactly what this is. It's postpartum depression. And so that is what sent me on my journey and got me to where I am now. That is what gave birth to the dealing with the dark feminine energy and helping women with that. All of that gave birth to this. And so what I did was I was still working through some things, still working through that fear, not wanting to say anything, but I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of not expressing how I feel. I'm tired of not expressing how you all are completely violating my boundaries right now. I have a new baby. I just got home with a new baby, and nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to, it's like it didn't even dawn on anyone to say, hey, let's make sure that things are clean. Let's make sure that, let's not go in here and junk up the kitchen because she has a baby. She has to come in here and do, like, nobody's thinking about this. It's just like business as usual. And I think that we have gotten to such a place here in society where a woman giving birth is just not a big deal anymore. Right? It's like, oh, okay, she had a baby, so what? But then we have so many laws that are governing our wombs and telling us, hey, you know what? We're controlling when you have a baby and when you don't. Excuse me, y'all, I'm having an interruption. Yes. I'm doing a live. Yes. Okay. All right. Just telling you, I'm just letting you know that I'm doing my shenanigans. Go for it. Okay. So, um, anyway, so it's been so commodified, and there's nothing, it's not being treated as the sacred event that it is, right? And so when we place women in this nuclear families position, a lot of times, a lot of women, their husbands will move them out of state. So now you've taken her away from her support system, her family, her friends. And so she goes through this whole process alone. Giving birth can be a very lonely place. And I know they don't. And so, it can be a very lonely place for a woman. And that's why I say, the womb is a woman's work. I am such a proponent of having women around you when you're having a baby. It needs to be treated as the sacred event that it is. It's sacred, it's powerful, it's life changing. We don't know what's going on even in the cosmos when a new baby comes, when a new soul comes here. We don't know what's going on. But our ancestors did. In those ancient times, women knew exactly what was going on when a woman in the village or whatever gave birth, right? So it needs to be it needs to be put back into that space. We're always talking about evolution, evolution. But what women were doing back then is actually more evolved than what women are doing now. To me, giving birth in a hospital is very primitive. It's supposed to be modern and all of these things, but to me, it's very primitive. I think women need to have. When I meet women who have home births and water births, I just think that is such a wonderful, beautiful experience because you're doing it in the right way, right? We see images of the goddess Isis and she's sitting on the birthing stool, right? That to me is, if we want to compare things to being modern and archaic, that's more modern. You land on your back in the hospital bed, pushing a baby out, you're going against gravity. I think that having a baby in the hospital is also a contributing factor to postpartum depression. So when I say postpartum depression is the dark gift, what I'm saying is we're taking that energy and that darkness of depression and we're transmuting that energy. It is a way for you to get to know you. Okay, so we went from being around all of these women and our mothers and aunties and grandmothers and having that the midwifery, we're going away from that. And now we're putting you in this hospital room. And you got all these people hooking you up to things and doing all these things and treating you as if you have some sort of a disease or something when you're just you're doing something that's natural. Okay. And so when that postpartum depression kicks in, I think it is a way, I think it's your ancient, that voice in you that is saying, get back to you. You're in this space now where you're not being supported like your ancestors were. But even though you're not being supported in that way, you still have to get back to you. Let me read a comment. I'm currently pregnant with my first child. It's already so life changing. My best friend, in quotes, and her mom abandoned me after years of being close and me being there for them. Yeah, so that's not surprising because that's another thing that takes place. When I talk, because women have gotten so far away from that communal aspect of womanhood. Women thrive in communities. Okay, that's where we thrive. And when you have a situation like yours, Lexi, it it makes things so much harder on you. And so, like I said, it's like that postpartum depression puts you in this. It's a dark place that you go to. But I think that women, we're so already conditioned to have this fear of postpartum depression. I don't think it's anything to be feared. I think it's something that should be embraced. That's why I call it a gift, because it's the gift of learning how to transmute that energy. It's the gift of, okay, I'm in this situation. That voice is calling me. I need to pay attention to it. Why do I feel depressed? What's going on in my environment? Who's around me that is supportive? Who's not supportive? And women are so fucking powerful that it's like we can endure so much. Not saying that we should. I don't think women should have to endure these things alone, but because we're in this situation, we're doing it alone. Because like I said before, I felt very lonely, but it was an opportunity for me to get to know me. And so I decided that, okay, once I realized that I was going through postpartum depression, then I did things for myself that would, that kind of took me out of that space, that dark place that I was in. So, um, like I reconnected with a friend of mine, that she had just, well, her daughter was a little bit older than mine. And I reconnected with her and I found out that she was going through the same thing. And so it was like we bonded all over again. It wasn't trauma bonding, but I wouldn't say it was trauma bonding, but it was more of she understood what I was going through because she had gone through it. And so she was able to talk to me about things. And she's like, "Yeah, are you feeling this way? Because this is what I went through." And I was like, "Oh my God, that was the same thing. I felt the same way." And so she was really able to help me. And then it was interesting. Once that started happening, then other women, like I would talk to my sister, and then um other women that, that was in my family, they were like, "Oh yeah, I realized that I was going through postpartum depression." So what it did was it not only did it take me into that space, that dark place, but then it also helped me to connect with other women and they started talking to me about it. Because another thing that takes place with this, I think for women, it's like we don't want to talk about postpartum depression because it sounds like we're nagging or that we're complaining. Cause like, oh, here she go. Now she complaining. You just had a baby. Aren't you happy? And a lot of women don't bond with their babies right away. And that, to me, my theory, is another aspect of postpartum depression. So again, when I say it's a gift, because you get to know you. It's that dark feminine aspect of you that is reaching out, that is saying, "Hey, this is what you're going through. Embrace it." Because nothing lasts forever. You know, when I had my son, I went through postpartum depression again. And also with him, I suffered with mastitis. I wouldn't wish that pain on my worst enemy. That mastitis is I mean, it's insane. The pain. Your breasts are already sensitive, and then you have this clogged milk duct, but you still want to breastfeed. I went through a lot with having, actually, more so my son. Well, his birth was, no, I'll say his birth was a little bit easier. But with my daughter, your first birth is always going to take longer. I went through some stuff with her. They gave me Pitocin and all of these things. And with my son, I had a doula. So at that point, I had more knowledge. So his birth was a little bit easier. And he latched on right away. And I know it's because I didn't have all the drugs in my system. And so, but I still went through that postpartum depression. And then you add mastitis on top of it. Like, this is the kind of stuff we go through, right, as women. And so it's so important that we have other women around us. And we have to feel okay to be like, "I'm not okay. I'm harboring dark thoughts. How do I move past this?" My doctor wanted to put me on an antidepressant. I was like, "I don't want that shit. I'm good. Just give me something for the pain so I can work through this mastitis, but you're not putting me on no drugs. We're not doing that." So I just dealt with it. I embraced it. I saw it as an opportunity to learn about myself. Why are you going through postpartum depression? Why is this affecting you so much? What's the difference between the first birth and the second birth? So I was able to get to know me. So I don't view it, like I said when I first started, I don't view depression the way most people do. I view depression as a gift. I view it as an opportunity. And I know that's some way out of the box thinking, but that's how I view it. And so when I say, the dark gift, right? Because, oh, I had another example, because that's what I wanted to mention. My niece, she when she had her son, she sent out this long email to everybody, a family thread email. And when I was reading the email, I could tell this email is coming from a place of postpartum depression, and I don't even think she realizes it. But in the email, she was talking about how she doesn't have a support system and you need to, all of these things, right? And even though she did have a bit of a support system through her in-laws, her mother-in-law was really great. Um, but she felt like she didn't have enough support around her. And so she expressed it in that way. She didn't say in those exact words, but that's basically the gist of it. But what I took from that immediately was this email is coming from a space of postpartum depression. I wonder if she even realizes that. So I think that, like any other type of energy, if you're not knowledgeable of it and how to hone in on it and how to deal with it accordingly and transmute it accordingly, it shows up almost independent of you. You don't even realize that it's active, right? You're just, and that's why I say with that letter she wrote, it was coming from a place of postpartum depression. And she even actually, interesting, this is funny. I remember she even said, and no, I'm not suffering with postpartum depression. But I was like, yes, you are. That's what this is. And it was myself and another cousin of mine. And she even said in the response, well, cousin, do you think that it possibly is postpartum depression? It's funny. I'm talking about this. The memories coming back. And she was denying it. But of course, later on, years down the line, she was like, "Oh my God, I know that that's what that was." So postpartum depression is so heavy, and it just comes with a lot. And but you still have to. It's so important to recognize it and to know, okay, that's what this is. That's why I'm harboring dark thoughts. That's why I'm not bonding with my baby. That's why I feel lonely. It's postpartum depression. So let me deal with it. Let me embrace it. Let me get to me. What happened? Because I always say, especially the first time you have a baby, that is a symbolic death. It's the birth of a new soul, but it's a symbolic death of you because it is a symbolic death of the maiden because the maiden has died and now you're a mother. That's a whole other type of energy, right? This is why women shouldn't be getting pregnant before their prefrontal cortex is fully developed, right? But anyway, that's another conversation. um, that's the death of the maiden. So that's why I said with the feminine energy in its essence, that primordial energy, it's very dark. And it's nothing wrong with that. You embrace that darkness because it's you, it's a part of who you are. It's how everything gets created, right? But because we have been taken out of our sovereign capacity as women, now these things show up differently. Like who knows if what sort of things a woman went through in ancient times after she had a baby. She may have had, because there's a lot going on, the hormones and all of these things that are taking place physically. But because in those ancient times she had other women around her, it was easier to deal with. In some tribes, even to this day, I know in Africa, after a woman has a baby, they take the newborn baby and they care for it. I don't know how long, so the mother can just rest. So she can just rest. So it's that saying, you have to mother, who's going to mother the mother, right? And so giving birth, yes, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also very dark, right? And again, nothing wrong with that. It's all about understanding that and understanding who you are as a feminine energy and understanding that you come from that dark place first because everything happens in the dark before you bring it to the light, right? So, oh, I see another comment says, oh, Lexi says, yeah, I think I'm dealing with some form of it now during pregnancy. You know, I've heard that where a lot of women during pregnancy, they'll go through some type of depression. Um, I don't know. Now, for me, I didn't really go through that, and I'm really glad. I hope that you're able to, if you have some women around you that you can kind of lean on with that, because when you are feeling like that during your pregnancy, it can show up. It can manifest itself after you have the baby. So, these are things to just really think about and hope that, you have some women that you can that you can look to for some type of guidance or just to talk to. you know, because, having a baby, like I said, is so sacred. And, you want to be in a good space mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Even when you're pregnant, after you have the baby, all of these things, you want to be in that space. I know you said that you were abandoned after they abandoned you after 3 years of being close and being there for them. Yeah. I think now, women have a really hard time with cultivating and maintaining long-term friendships with other women. And I think that all of that though is so rooted in even having your children. When we have a communal structure, all the women are there to raise all the children. That's how it used to be. And nowadays it's like when a woman gets pregnant, a lot of times there's fear that sets in. We've been conditioned to have this sort of fear around pregnancy. And, and that to me, it's like that comes from being in this the way this thing is structured here. Having a baby, bringing souls here under patriarchy. Like you can't get any more crazier than that, right? Because the patriarchal structure is not natural, right? And so you are in this construct bringing souls here. So it's not surprising that there would be aspects of fear surrounding that, right? Um so with this postpartum depression, my message really to women is, let's not be fearful of it, right? Let's really take a step back and look at it as an opportunity to get to know yourself. Like I said before, it's the death of the maiden. It's a symbolic death. You can look at that and say, okay, I'm going to mourn her, right? And now I'm going to embrace the mother. I think that's a really great way to, get a little bit of a handle on the postpartum depression. Because that's what it is. It's like I said, it's giving birth is a symbolic death. And, birth of a new life, symbolic death of the old you, right? So I think that there should be like a small ritual where you mourn the maiden, right? That part of you, the maiden, the young, um, you know, whatever it is you were doing, the maiden in archetype mythology, she's free, she's wild and free, and she's the goddess of the hunt. She's doing all these things, right? And so then once she gets pregnant, that shifts. Okay. And then she has a baby. And so now she's no longer the maiden. I think that she should be mourned and celebrated and thank her for taking you on this journey and bringing you into this next phase of your life, which is the mother. I think that's what women should do. I think that would be a beautiful ritual. And did I just come up with something? I think I did, y'all. I think I just came up with something. I have to write about that. I think I need to write it out with some type of step-by-step instruction. Let's see. I'm excited for my baby, very excited. That's beautiful. I'm working on a lot now to get my peace of mind together, especially so I don't stress him out or it doesn't affect him. Also, you're having a boy. Okay. Yeah, that's a whole different thing too. And that's another thing. It's amazing how we try to act like having a boy is different from having a girl. The pregnancies are different. I'm not a doctor by no means, but I know that they're different. So let's see. You said you're gonna get your peace of mind together so you don't stress him out or it doesn't affect him after birth. Yeah. Um, well, just the fact that you're excited and happy about it, I mean, that is such a major thing. I was really, really happy and excited with both my pregnancies. I actually loved being pregnant. I know some women have different views on that, and I respect that because some pregnancies are hard, but I love being pregnant. I had really great pregnancies. So the fact that you're excited is definitely going to translate. That message is definitely going to send that it that message will be sent to your womb and to the fetus, because our wombs and our mind are connected. They're one. And that's why I say, if you control the wombs and the minds of women, you control the world. And as we see, that's what happens, right? So, how far along are you in your pregnancy? Um, so, like I said before, the message here is that to I want to give that message to women that postpartum depression doesn't have to be, bad or, feared. It is a part of that. It's the afterbirth. It's the afterbirth, and it's, like I said, it's the symbolic death. And the feminine energy is all about death and rebirth, right? So like I said, I want to send that message that it's not to be feared, and to embrace it as a gift, and to get to know you, right? The new you. Mourn the old you and get to know the new you. I think that that is a great way um to to have to deal with that, with postpartum depression. So, oh, you're 21 weeks. Okay. Wait, 21 weeks. That is 12. Are you three? Wait, seven? Child, do the math. 21 weeks. Okay. Each trimester is 3 months, right? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. It's about 5 months. Yeah, 5 months. Look, I'm literally over here counting on my hands like, wait a second, 3, 6. Okay, yeah, 5 months. Okay, so, all right. Yes, child. You look, gotta do the math. I will sit up here like, do the math. Um, okay, so yeah, I'm excited for you. I think that it's so important for us to, you're carrying this life inside of you, and it's exciting, and you're nervous, and you're all of these things that are taking place. And if you have women around you that are supportive and love you, and gosh, it would just make things a lot better for a lot of women. But I hope that, you are able to have that. I know you said some of the people you had in your life are no longer there, but I hope that, you can still get that and have that experience. Having a doula was like the best thing for me. Um, Thank you. I feel like the universe is looking out for me regardless. Yeah. For example, me being able to hear you. Oh, thank you. You know what? I always say the mother God she's always speaking to us. And I know that she speaks to me. This is why these messages come to me. Like I said, it was like, okay, let's talk about postpartum depression. And it's like, well, why are you talking about that? But I just felt like I needed to talk about it because, again, I deal with all things dark feminine here, and postpartum depression is that. So I'm so glad that you came here and you were able to get some value from this. I really, really, that I'm like, wow. You said being able to hear you're inspiring. Yes. Look, my whole my work here is for women, right? It is to empower women. It is to, the message of you can do whatever the fuck you want. You're a woman. You're powerful. And this is not to be like gassing anybody up. We have the sister circles. Nah, that ain't what this is. Like, I'm all about constantly telling women how fucking powerful they are. And they don't have to wait for anybody. They don't have to wait for a man. They don't have to wait for whatever. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You're powerful, right? We live in a cosmic womb. Everything is feminine. And we are the human physical representations of nature and the cosmos. So yeah, we're powerful. Okay. So I think that I am going to wrap this up, ladies. I'm so glad you guys came. Glad you were able to join me for this live. And Lexi, I wish you nothing but the best. A beautiful, beautiful birthing experience for you and your son. And I think that's it. Oh, as I said earlier before, if anyone's interested in working with me, my links are in my bio. If you're not sure, you're on your journey, but you just kind of need a little bit of some clarity or something like that, you can definitely book a 30-minute free consult with me. Now, what I don't know how to do is put the link in the can you put links in here? I don't know, child. Um just DM me here on or you can just hit me up in the chat and we can get you started. And thank you. Oh, thank you, Lexi. And yeah, you have a wonderful night. All the rest of you, everyone on here, my 3 viewers, thank you all for coming, and you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day or evening. And I'll see you on Substack. All right. Peace.